Right, now regardless of the size or the particular type of chimney that's being built, in general terms you'll find that they're constructed in just a few various ways. Right, now I've started with this example based on this photograph. You can see that the light is falling on the right, and so this side of the chimney stack is in shadow. Now you can see that the top part of the chimney stack is also extended out slightly from the main part of the stack to give a bit of decoration and a bit of extra stability to the chimney pots. And you can see how easy that is. I've just drawn the pencil line there, and then for the top part slightly outside that pencil line. When you come to this line here, then you see the way I've offset that slightly to the left, so that looks, well, as is, a little bit wider than the main stack. I'm going to paint that quite light, like that, and then to get the round sort of effect, so you've got the shadow on the left hand side because the light's coming from the right, a little bit of slightly darker and stronger colour into the still damp paint on the left hand side like that, and you can see, there we go, it's running away quite nicely and it's going to give us a nicely blended effect. Right, that's fine as far as a chimney stack that's flush with the end of a gable goes, but what about one that's behind the apex of the roof, in other words over the other side of the roof, a little bit like that one? Well, first thing is that you need to make sure that your verticals for the chimney stack are absolutely vertical. The angle this way really runs parallel with the roof. It becomes another one of your bicycle spokes, doesn't it? I'm going to put 3 or 4 chimney pots in here, just basic round, not too long chimney pots. How many will fit? We'll perhaps get one more in there like that. Now that's fine. You can see how the chimney stack works when it's on the other side of the roof. But what happens when it's on this side of the roof? Well, no problem. All that we need to do in that case is just rub out some of these roof tiles here. Let's move it onto this side of the roof. And in that case, the chimney stack is coming down at the same angle as the roof. But you can see how quick and easy that is to transfer the chimney from the back of the roof to the front of the roof. And I tell you, there's plenty of builders that would love to do that, to move a 1-ton chimney in about 60 seconds. All I'm doing is actually putting the almost putting the paint on, sort of wet in wet, or certainly damp in damp if it's not wet in wet. If you're going to put some slightly darker brickwork on, do it where you want them to stand out against, in this case, the distant sky. Here you might have a slightly darker colour for the tiles, so it's better off to leave this a little bit lighter against the darker colour of the tiles. Now you can see that I'm just painting very freely again over these tiles, quite happy to leave these little light streaks here and there, which all help to add a little bit of sparkle to the picture. Now for the lead flashing, it gets a sort of a slightly blue grey, so we'll just represent that like that, and then a slightly darker line just to get the hint of the actual gaps underneath and between the tiles. And make sure as well, if you have the long edge of the brick here, you have the short edge of the brick there, and vice versa. Right, now the shadow is slightly on the blue side. It's a little bit more ultramarine blue because what I wanted was this early morning sunlight casting somewhat of a cool shadow, hence the slight emphasis on the blue. You can see I've just painted it in quick sweeps over this side of the chimney, just touched these chimney pots in again a little bit, and then I've brought it down in an angle here onto the roof line. Let's have a look now at the chimney stack that sits astride the apex of the roof. Now you can see in this instance, when you want to draw a chimney that's sitting astride a roof, then obviously you've got the roof line running through the middle of it. So all that you do is take the roof line to the centre of the stack. You can see here where the roof line comes in and starts coming down at the beginning of the stack. Here we do it to the middle, and then just draw, depending on the angle of the roof, just draw that down to the point where the stack finishes. And then if you want to exaggerate the situation with the roof tiles, then there you go. It's almost like a choppy sea, that, isn't it, the way the tiles run up and down, but you often get them, and there's the proof. Right, now I've put this very, very pale wash of raw sienna. You can hardly see it, you probably can only just about see it on camera, but it's just enough, particularly when it dries back, it'll dry back even lighter. But it's sufficient just to add a little bit of subtle warmth to a chimney breast or a chimney stack that's catching the sunlight. On this side, I'm going to add a tiniest touch of ultramarine blue, which gives us a little bluey grey. You can see that. It's certainly not dark, it's hardly a shadow, but it's just not quite as full on bright as this side here. Right, now I've just added some of the same shadow colour here just underneath some of these tiles, just to give a little bit of modelling to them and a little bit of impression of the, shall we say, undulating nature of the roof. I must do that little stone slab that sits on top of the roof. I'm doing very much in a hit and miss style, and I'm just going over the edge like that, and then what I'll do is just add a little bit of darker shadow colour underneath to give it a little bit of indication that it's actually hanging over like that. Right, now the final example I want to show you is where the chimney breast, or the chimney stack, actually sits partially outside the building. It's fairly straightforward, but I just thought I'd show you one or two interesting features. When I was looking round for reference photos for chimneys, I came across this picture, and although there's no chimney stack anymore, it's obviously been sealed off at some point in the past, you can see that the term that we use called reflected light really applies here, because the sunlight is coming sharply and quite harshly from the left hand side and really lighting up this side of the building. This side, you can see, is clearly in shadow, as is the stack, except that you can see it's quite dark here, but the light that's hitting the wall here is bouncing back and lightening this part of the stack here and here quite considerably. And also you can see there's quite a light area here down on the back wall, which is also receiving some reflected light from somewhere. Now this is a quite subtle but very important lesson that you need to learn. Always be aware with buildings that if you've got strong light coming from one direction, have a look at where the reflected light might turn up. And sometimes when you've got a white stack on a white wall like that, even though the sunlight's shining on it, sometimes it's helpful to just put a very lighter colour on that and just bleed it out away from the stack itself. If we pick up the lesson that we've just seen with the building in Whitby, what we'll do here is just to lighten that off and take some light out of that shadow like that, and you can see the difference that that makes. We've still got quite a dark shadow in this corner, and indeed it might cast a slight shadow on the wall next to the shadowed area of the stack. But if we lift that out, you can see how that works. Now of course, with the sun coming from this direction as well, you'll also get a shadow coming down the roof like that. So you can see you don't have to do a full painting, just a few little cameo studies like this of chimneys and roofs, and it's a very pleasing way to spend half an hour or so if you haven't got time to do a full painting.